tell me, well, first of all, let's introduce you because I know you, but the audience may not. This is James Alder from Reno in Nevada, and talk about sticking to traditions. His underpants are vintage, never mind his car. But because what I mean by that is he drives his race car from event to event and has done for over 20...
Well, this would be season 41.
Holy Toledo. Good on you.
Yeah, well...
Flying the British flag of Jaguar as you do so.
Yeah, it's, you know, for many, many years, I was able to successfully drive the car to the event, race, and hopefully be competitive, and then drive the car home. Lately, though, I'm finding that to be impossible. I mean, I'm finding it to be very, very difficult. I put a fresh engine in my car recently because I had a broken crankshaft, which I'll show you a picture of. And I had the crank refitted to the car, you know, a fresh rebuild, but it did not hold together. There's something wrong, and so I'm happy to be here with you, Jonathan. I'd much rather be on the track in my Jaguar.
Let's talk about this period. We've done it many times before. This is race group 1, and this is a period from 47 to 56. Obviously, the war had just finished. The Second World War had just finished.
Yes.
And we're now looking at a time when imports like the Jaguar XK120 were coming over. But just put us in period. Tell us a little bit about what we're looking at right now.
Well, you know, post-World War II era was wonderful. You know, the hostilities had ceased. People wanted to get back to living life. And driving sports cars, racing sports cars was a very big part of it. Actually, the Pebble Beach road races came because they were having difficulty selling the lots on 17 Mile Drive. And so it was at the suggestion of Sterling Edwards that they have a road race there. So they had the Del Monte road races that became the Pebble Beach road races. Then at that period, there was people that were spectating and bringing in classic Packards and Duesenbergs. And they thought, hey, let's have a little show for these guys. Now that's called the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the other side of it, and we've talked about this again, you know, you mentioned the Pebble Beach races. It doesn't do any harm when you bring what were the day's rock stars like Sterling Moss, like Phil Hill, a product obviously here from California, and these were the greatest drivers in the world at the time. And they were happy to just jump in a production car and go racing.
Well, that's right. There wasn't any big money involved. The first Pebble Beach road race was won by Phil Hill in a Jaguar XK120. And it was, you know, they were gentlemen drivers and, you know, just living life to the fullest. Didn't have, you know, very little sponsor. In fact, you'll see these cars. Now, this Group 1 is on the pace lap right now. And there's no livery, you know, there's no advertising on these cars. And, of course, back in the day, that's what these guys did. They you know, took the grocery, they went to the grocery store in their cars, but they drove the car to the racetrack. They taped up the headlights. They might have removed the windscreen. They took off the hubcaps, and they raced the car like there was no tomorrow.
Well, like I mentioned, you do that, or you have done that in the past. Tell us about how the idiosyncrasies of actually taking your race car. Do you have to adjust it so you get it there? Or
yes,
the
tire
longevity?
pressure.
Snow? Yeah. Mountains?
Well, I mean, I have gone through the snow on many occasions over Donner Pass.
Right.
Because I have raced in Westwood, British Columbia years ago when that was actually going over a couple of mountain passes. But again, it was important to me to do it the way they did it because I think that's kind of what this is all about. Now, sometimes I feel, you know, a little stranded and a little stupid if I have a broken car. But this would have been event 167 in 41 seasons. And there's only been a small handful when I actually couldn't arrive by the race car, you know, or leave. So this is going to be the start. They're coming around 11 right now.
How about the view I got you?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, this is great.
This is great.
And of course, on the pole is the Tatum, which is a General Motors truck 6-cylinder engine, actually. It's a special built by Chuck Tatum. And then there's a D-Jag right next to it. They're looking for...
Kyrgios,
there we go. Yeah, a Kyrgios D-type. Okay, they have a green. This is a mixed bag out there, but that's how it was in the day. Look at the Kurtis. It just took it was like in 4th position.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was a bonsai move there, going into 1.
Up the hill they go then for the first time. 8 laps to go in our Group 1. You're listening to James Alder, who sadly not out there today, and unfortunately his beautiful white Jaguar XK120 not at full fettle, but he's here to join us and take us through, because you must have raced against most of these guys, yeah?
Yes, I've raced with this group for decades. Great group. You can get, you can trust them. You can be next to them at high speed. The business about looking at each other at 200 miles per hour in Ford versus Ferrari, that's a little extreme. That's a little bit of artistic license going on. But you can be at full tilt in a tour, in a turn with these guys and feel secure. You can trust what they're going to do.
The 9C, Don Pepperdine at the wheel of that Dodge. That Kurtis, as you mentioned.
Right, and so the Tatum, I think, is retaking the lead.
Yep.
It looked like to me coming out of the carousel, going into 7.
Yep. So we've got a nice little battle at the front, and it looks as though it's going to be a competitive one.
But remember, we got a really mixed group here, and so what I always try to tell people that are watching, to try to find the race within the race. And it might be 2 or 3 guys that are having a tremendous battle for 10th position. So it's not always up at the front that it counts, in my opinion. However, it does look like the Tatum has pulling out a little bit of a substantial lead.
Good race here. And the 15 of J Street in that 1952 Streets Manning. So that really is a father-son stroke named after the car, and he's following the family tradition.
Well, and it's a junkyard dog, but they are fast. So you've got a D-Jag and a 200S Maserati out here, really sophisticated, state-of-the-art cars at the time, but combined with these specials, which I affectionately refer to as junkyard dogs, but they are fast. Now look at the Kurtis. The Kurtis now has passed the Manning and into second, but let's see if he can hold that position.
One thing that comes to mind, and not many of us will get behind the wheel, but they're huge wheels. That must be something that takes a little bit of learning. These massive wheels.
Yeah, and of course they're big in diameter because there's no power steering. So you have to have something larger, to be able to turn the darn wheels.
Yeah, no kidding.
But at speed, they're easy to turn. When you're in a parking spot,
right?
That's when it's a little bit difficult.
Well, that's true of a modern car too.
So right now, kind of in the back, is my friend Tim Barnes in his XK120. And so my car and that one, there would only been 2 XK120s in this group, but they're beautiful cars and great cars to drive, but certainly not as fast as the cars that are in the lead now. Yeah,
and I was reading up on the way here on how Jaguar back in Great Britain. I thought it was just that they liked the car here in the States, but Jaguar actually were looking for export figures. So they were encouraging. And I think what appealed to the American, you tell me, was it had that flow, that design of a European exotic car, but the big engine the Americans love and crave.
Well, the Jaguar, the XK engine, the double overhead cam XK engine was actually designed during World War II as an engine to propel the Mark V saloon 100 miles an hour all day long, but they couldn't get that car ready for the Earl's Court Motor Show. And so William Lyons took out a piece of paper and sketched out a body shape and said, look, just put this body on the chassis as a display for the XK engine. And that's how the XK120 was actually created. It was just to be a display for the motor. But at the Earl's Court Motor Show, the press and the public were so enamored with that car, they decided they got to build more of them. And the demand was tremendous. And then, of course, when Phil Hill won the Pebble Beach Road Race in an alloy-bodied 120, it just really got the general public excited, and it was a very successful car, of course, for Jaguar.
I know, and I bet you there's a few designers wishing that they could have had that luck, that, you go in and suddenly it gets picked up. We've just been joined also by Maurice Merrick, who was out there, I believe. Were you out there a moment ago?
I was. Good morning, Johnny. Yeah, I was in the Hall Scott this morning, which is an absolute beast. That's the all-bare aluminum.
I think I saw you waving to the crowd as you went by.
Indeed, and I'm here also with Bobby Green, the owner of the 20 Duesenberg. We got to get his take.
We're going to get his take. We'll get your take on it, and then we'll take his, because I want to hear about that Duesenberg.
Well, let's talk about this Hall Scott. So it's a car that was not built in period, but there are period drawings. There were plans for this car. Hall Scott was an aircraft engine manufacturer, so The motor in this car is 4-cylinder, 9.9 liters overhead cam, and makes about 125 horsepower, but 450 foot-pounds of torque at just 1,300 RPM. So, needless to say, it pulls like a train in top gear. Wonderful car.
Well, listen, we've only got 5 minutes left on this race, so I want to concentrate on what we're looking at. But stay with us because we'll have time. Ooh, that's not a planned exit.
No, it certainly is not. That's a D-Jag. So I'm not sure what's going on right there.
That's Alex McAllister in the Curie, of course.
Right, and it looks like it's steam, so I think a hose blew. Now, right now, that is the Parkinson special that started life as an alloy-bodied XK120 but crashed at Pebble Beach, was rebodied, owned by Don Parkinson, called the Parkinson Special. That's the white number 3, very, very fast.
And isn't there a connection between Parkinson and Hill?
Yes, there is. I think brother-in-law.
That's right.
Right.
Thought so. You taught me that.
Okay. And then look at this Talbot-Lago Grand Prix car. I mean, 1948, I believe, is that.
That's Gilbert Hakim in the 49 Baldwin Mercury.
Yeah, the Mercury Baldwin, really fast car. And by the way, a lot of these specials are owned by Rob Manson, and he lets these other people drive these cars.
He's a brave man.
He's a brave man. He's in the Simca, which is an 1100cc French Fiat, kind of a division of Fiat for France, and with the Abarth aftermarket. And it's he's out there, 1100 cc's, he's not in the front, but it's a very, very interesting car that Rob is driving. But again, he's allowing these others to drive his specials, his junkyard dogs, as they call them. And he's very generous with that, and those cars are very fast.
Yeah, Rob's a great guy.
Bobby Green just joins us.
Rob's great. You mentioned Phil Hill, and Phil Hill is so respected in the Ferrari racing world, Jaguar racing world. But I think about 2 to 3 of those specials, California specials out there running, were half built by Phil Hill.
Right.
So he was a hot rodder in his early days.
Bruce McLaren in his own way.
Well, it was International Motors in L.A. where they all worked. Richie Ginther, Johnny Von Neumann, Phil Hill. Johnny Von Neumann was a salesman, and he had that MG-TD special that was really, really fast. And then when he started driving Porsches, well, then it all became a Porsche thing. But this was back in the day when Ken Miles was developing the flying shingle.
We gave you the odd good driver.
Well, the Abarth Simca won in 1951 at Pebble Beach. It won its class, and it was like 7th overall. Oh, here's Rob right now.
Is this by magic? Let's bring him in.
By magic, Rob. You're supposed to be out there.
There you go. The first thing he's going to do is correct you.
Me, yes.
Rob, carry on and correct Mr. Alden. Nothing better in the world.
Jim should continue. He's doing a great job, and we will. I'll correct him when I hear a need to do that.
What's going on? How's the raceway this morning?
Well, unfortunately, the Barlow Simca lasted about 1 lap, and then went down onto 1 cylinder. So I limped back into the pits, and I don't know what the problem is, but that is a cute little car that was an absolute winner in its day, and it will be fast again. We're just trying it out for the first time since 19.
It looks to me like that steam. Sorry, Rob, to interrupt you, but I think he blew a hose or something. I think that's water because it's the steam looks like it's water-based instead of oil-based. That's probably good. And there's a full course yellow right now. It looks like we're going to lose a couple of laps to a full course yellow.
Everybody's out there behind the pace car.
Yeah, Alistair McAllister in that D-type Jag.
Now, we haven't talked much also about the TR2. There's a 1955 TR2 out there owned by Dave Nelson. And he actually drove the car from Geyserville, not too far away, but he did drive the car here this weekend. He did not trailer it here to the track. And as you know, I very much respect that. I'm
exactly.
a fan of that. Yes.
There can't be many of you that still do that.
A lot of people are a lot smarter than Dave and myself.
Well, actually, they were all road registered in the day, and they were driven to the track. Nobody trailered them until 1954 or so. So they were driven down by amateurs from Atherton or somewhere, and on the peninsula down to Pebble Beach for a party weekend. And by the way, we just took a couple laps around at the racetrack and had a lot of fun with that. It was all social, and it was all a lot of fun.
But the beginnings of something huge.
Oh, huge indeed. I mean, we're here today because of what happened in those very early days from 1947 to 1953 or so, when people realized that road racing, European style, was really interesting and fun, and there were these new sports cars that really, Jaguar XK120, about the sexiest thing on wheels. Nobody had ever seen anything like that before, certainly no American cars. And it was popularity that caught on very fast for a brand new sport.
Yeah, and if you like, racing drivers were the new fighter pilots. I mean, you know, back in the day, back in the World War IIs and World War Is, those fighter pilots were revered.
I like to think we still are.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I live in that fantasy world myself.
Good. I'm with you. So, Rob, who do you know out there that you'd want to doff your cap to? Very nice cap, by the way.
Oh, thank you. We have the same hatters.
I'll put mine on there.
Excellent.
All right, well, while these guys are circulating around, you know, the Del Monte Trophy Race Group was established to showcase and to present to the public, to the spectators, many of whom never knew anything about the early days of road racing. They just see what's there today.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it come from? How did it start? Who were the people? What were the cars? Where were they built? That's what the Del Monte Trophy Race Group is all about. And what you see out there are 20 or so cars that did or would have raced at the places like Pebble Beach for the road races that were held from 1950 to 56, or Golden Gate Park, or Torrey Pines down in the LA area, and a whole lot of airport tracks that were made use of after World War II and were available. So that's what the group is all about. There are 20 or so cars. They're production cars, production sports cars. They're all imported. And then there are a group of California hot rod specials. And those cars are to be seen within the general hot rod movement that occurred after World War II. And that was guys using the same junkyards to build the cars that they wanted to compete or to drive on the street. So 32 Ford Roadsters with Ford Flathead V8s, or Bonneville cars, or cars taken down at the dry lakes at El Mirage, for instance, or Goleta for the first drag races ever, 1949.
Rob, it looks like the pace car lights are out, so I think that the full course yellow is coming to an end. And
Nah, light's still on at the moment, though.
oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, and I see the yellow flag. So
Yeah.
there must be some trouble. I don't know if they've shown. Is that still the D-type, do you think, that they're dealing with?
Could be. Well, I noticed that there was a blower out there trying to. Yeah, look, see,
Oh, right.
there's
That's
obviously
oil,
material
not,
gone down.
Oil, not water.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
that
That's what
is
it
serious
is.
stuff, so we
Yeah.
don't want to risk anything. But it gives us more time for stories. So let's keep going.
Darn right.
Darn right it does. We've just been hearing about the Duesenberg, which I'm so glad got out there. That was great. So happy for you. And we did, I had Bill Bennett in here talking about, you know, the sort of history of how aircraft were involved. But also, you mentioned just something there, that how, you know, Sebring's probably the best example because it's still going. But, you know, what we're to do with an airfield that now didn't need to be constantly used for World War II planes or to, you know, for that usage. So, yeah, they sat derelict until the races came along.
When the first road races were held, it was one of the things that both Johnny von Neumann and Roger Barlow and those people who put the first sort of proto-organizations together, Cal Club or Northern California SCCA, couldn't find locations, couldn't find anywhere where they could suitable for putting on a road race, and they really worked hard at that. And eventually they were able to get some airport managers who by that time were pretty sleepy characters, or when anything going on, they were airports that had been decommissioned, but they weren't then converted to civilian use. So they finally approached a few people, and I remember a story about one of them in Santa Barbara at Goleta for the drag races, and the manager kind of woke up and he said, yeah, well, I don't know, you probably need some insurance, and we don't have any facilities out here. So, but if you want to use the taxiways, well, you can do that if you get the insurance. So they went to town, the insurance broker got Lloyd's of London, paid $75 for it. And then the facilities, the facilities turned out to be a little bigger problem because, you know, porta potties weren't readily available. So one of the cannons, Uncle Ted, said, well, I'll take care of it. So he gets a porta potty, he mounts it on wheels, he welds a trailer hitch on the back of his race car, the Cannon Mark II, and proceeds to tow the porta potty to the airport, and therefore provide the facilities. I have a picture of that.
He towed it with the race car.
Yeah, towed it with the race car.
Well, you never know when you might need it.
Unhitched it, did the race, towed it back, you know. That car still exists, and it still has a trailer hitch on it.
Well, look, we're just under 3 laps to go.
There we go. That's
Boys,
John
jump in
Buttenbaum.
if you've got a comment or a story. We've got a bunch of people here. We got Maurice. Maurice, go on. Tell us something.
Come on, Maurice.
Come on, Maurice.
Yeah, another important figure in sports car racing in the early 50s was General Kurtis LeMay, who I think was chief of staff of the Air Force, or maybe he was chief of the Strategic Air
Kurtis
Command.
LeMay, what a great sounding name.
And he was a sports car enthusiast, and so he was able to open doors for these guys and allow them to race on Air Force property. So
He actually raced an Allard. He raced an Allard, his own Allard. And he was absolutely passionate about it. It was a great point. And,
Well, there is an Allard in our
these.
group,
Yep.
by the way.
Yep. Let me just see which one is that.
That's Mr. Moat.
Yep.
So that's the French blue Allard out there.
Which he likes to describe as kind of a prototype, you know, English body chassis, but with an American V8.
Mm-hmm.
Really was somewhat of the inspiration for Carroll Shelby, you know, creating the Tiger and, of course, the AC Cobra.
Well, let me ask you this.
I think we are going to have a green flag. Here we go. We got a green.
We're going racing. That's what we wanted to hear. Group 1 races away again. Sadly,
I love it.
A bit of a delay, but we'll take it. We got some good stories in.
There are 5 California specials in the top 6.
There you go.
Well, and there's also, by the way, an XK120C, C for competition, so commonly referred to as the C-type Jag. They only made 53 of those. That one out there, number 21, is XKC 050. And just incredible car. Take it to the grocery store. It would go 150 miles an hour. And a very rare, obviously very valuable BRG number 21.
Beautiful. So it looks like the race gods have added a couple of laps to us.
Oh,
I like
excellent.
it. 4 laps to go now in our feature race.
Oh,
well, you got to let them race.
Excellent.
Do you guys like Sonoma? I mean, you go to many tracks around the USA, but is Sonoma one of your favorites?
Well, yes. It's geographically closer to me. I can
No,
make
that's
it
true.
I can make it in about 2 hours and 40 minutes, depending on traffic. Right. That's kind of.
But you've raced in Europe, right?
Well, I've raced in Phillip Island in
oh,
Australia.
wow, that's a great circuit.
Yeah, that is a great circuit. So, and that's the only time I actually didn't drive the car to the event was in Australia.
that I can forgive you for.
Thank you.
All right, this is the Parkinson Jaguar, driven by John Buttenbaum.
Taking the wheel out the back for a little bit.
That car has a fabulous history, and it was second in the very first Pebble Beach road race.
Really?
1950.
As a 120. Though,
As a
regular
120 roadster, yeah.
Okay. Who drove that? Do you know?
Don Parkinson, who was Phil Hill's brother-in-law, and so the race was won by Phil Hill, and they were both in Jaguar 120 roadsters. brother and brother-in-law, and the Parkinson Jaguar Special comes about as a result of Don Parkinson coming back to Pebble Beach in 1951 and rolling the car in practice into the pine trees.
Oops.
Now that's street cred that nobody has. So that car got its body stripped off it. It had some other relatively minor changes made to it, and a new aluminum body, which you see on the track right now, built, and it became, as a result, the Parkinson Jaguar Special.
And when you say new, you mean new in 1951, late 51,
That's right.
early 52.
Yeah, 1951, and the other part of that transformation is that Richie Ginther, first of all, Phil Hill helped with the reconstruction, and secondly, Richie Ginther hot-rodded the Jaguar motor. It was a 3.4 liter, pretty standard motor, and Richie booted it up to 3.8, and therefore the first 3.8 Jag hot rod on California soil. That's the other part of that story. Beautiful car, wonderful.
Yeah, and I love hearing all these stories because I'm sure there's a bunch of Brits out there that, are sort of faithful to the mark, as it were, that kind of just are astonished at what you guys kind of innovated. I mean, you're reminding me of what Enzo called the garagistas, the tinkerers. And obviously you took with both hands and with full glee the idea of taking something and, in your words, making, or in the words of those that innovated, making it better, making it faster, making it more powerful. The question I have, when you start putting big bore motors in these smaller cars, or at least these European-based cars, did you have to stiffen chassis and bodywork and so on, because now you're putting more power and the car is literally pushed under more forces?
Absolutely. The chassis that are on a number of the California Specials are Ford production car chassis, typically. Mm-hmm. They cut the cross sections out, welded in big new cross members in an attempt to stiffen everything up while maintaining the Ford running gear and suspension. Those are unique cars.
Look at that group right there. I mean, you got the 200S Maserati, then the Siata of Robert Davis, then you've got the C-Jag right there, and then Dave Nelson in the TR2.
Great group.
So they're having a great dice. It could be for 10th position. I'm not sure where they are overall. But again, I always like to talk about finding the race within the race.
Yep.
Because these guys are driving absolutely as hard as they can.
And by the way, the leader, not holding back, 203.7. We don't discuss the times too much when we're out there, but I'm sure somebody would like to take a note of that. That's pretty impressive.
203 is a very, very fast time. I think my record here
is
about
Tony.
212.
That's Tony Garmy. He's driving the car for the first time this weekend, and he's doing a beautiful job with it.
But I'm sure he's got plenty of experience in other cars, but that's pretty impressive. Well, we've got a perfect day for it, a November day here in the hills of Sonoma, right here in the wine country, Velocity Invitational. You're listening to various drivers and enthusiasts that are part and make up the tapestry that is Velocity Invitational, the fourth running of this event. Absolutely delightful. I think long may it continue, and I think Jeffrey O'Neill and his team have put together a group of people that believe in the cause and believe in what this is all about, which is basically the history of combustion racing and the history of the automobile in many ways, because everything you see today, has a derivative, has a follow-on that we see in the modern-day cars.
I just saw Tony come out of turn 10 in a four-wheel drift into Tatum. He's doing a great drive. Look at him wrestle the wheel around 11 there. And then you have, Rob, that's your car in second place, right? That Slim is driving?
That's the Streets Manning Special, driven by the son of the builder.
That's right, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And
That's the
then
yellow
I think
nose.
it's a Cooper Bobtail in third position.
That's right. It's driven by Charles McCabe, who we all know is one of the best wheelmen with an ERA.
Yeah. Yep, you're absolutely right. Jay Street, by the way, absolutely driving.
He's driving that beautiful little Cooper Bobtail, which It's been going strong all weekend.
Well, the white flag did go out. We are on the final lap, folks, so let's enjoy this last lap with Group 1, but a great way to start us off. And like I said, I think what I love about the setup for this year's event is that we really do we are literally documenting the history of American racing. We've seen the ragtime guys. That gives us a real insight. We're now looking at the 50s, and this is where it really took off, as you've been talking about, you know, that combination of post-World War II, the roads, the European influence coming over, but then the Americans saying, well, we can do better. We can do, or at least we can try to do better. And that's when it was game on.
Well, absolutely.
Game on.
They didn't want us, you know, to spend the money to buy a 200S Maserati. They could build a special and be competitive. And
have fun.
That's what Rob's cars, we're witnessing that right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes it, you know, so interesting is, you know, and then you get your Dan Gurneys and your Chaparrals and the guys that said,
the ultimate
right.
expressions of the California Hot Rod Specials were the Scarab and the Chaparral 1 and front engine cars and all of their glory.
Well, now going into 11, looks like this is going to be for the checkered flag.
Yep, here comes Tony. And as you said, first time out in this car, but he hasn't held back by any means and takes the checkered flag in style. Tony Garmy then in a 1953 Tatum GMC
Wait a minute,
special.
we lost a car
We
here.
sure did.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
McCabe goes second now. So he's taken that Cooper Bobtail to second place.
Yeah, but we
and
lost
Pepperdine takes third. Oh, there he is.
There he is. Spun it.
Oh, well.
Unbelievable.
So the street ran out of road.
But that's just an example that these guys are pushing.
Who would do
it.
that?
They're really trying. I
There
mean,
he
this
goes.
is the last turn, last lap.
Yep.
tapping on the door.
There you go. He goes, you made it, y'all girl. Well done. He's enjoying it. We spoke to him just before he went out. And well done to Tony Garmy. And thank you, gentlemen, all of you. We got 4 of you here, and I love it. I wish we had more mics.
Well, listen, we start out with Duesenbergs, and we end up with Tatums. Fabulous.
I love it.